guys, welcome back to our channel. So we are finally back home again. We are really sorry that we missed uploading last week. We actually went to Ohio. I went there first with Sky by myself. Damar had some work things, so he came 2 days later. But we actually went to go visit my sister. She just had her third baby, so we got to meet their little boy, their first little boy. And yeah, over that time also we had a reunion, so Sky got to meet a lot of her extended family that she hasn't met yet. So it was really special and just got to enjoy some time away, and yeah, but we're ready to get back on schedule again. So today I actually wanted to sit down and just film Sky's birth story. Damar is going to actually join me really soon. But for the beginning part, there wasn't a whole lot that he had to say as far as her birth story, just because Sky's due date was May 7th of last year, and around March was when COVID hit. And so March was when Skylar was also diagnosed with fetal growth restriction. And so I had to be monitored really closely for the last few weeks of my pregnancy with her, but because of COVID, they actually didn't allow him to come to any of my appointments. So there isn't a whole lot of memory that he has and that he could speak on as far as the appointments and all that. So once we actually get to the delivery part, then he'll join me, help me kind of paint a picture of how that delivery went. So around 30 weeks, Skylar was diagnosed with fetal growth restriction, and around that time, they were just monitoring her closely, and they didn't know for sure if we should schedule an induction date as early as 37 weeks. They were just going to kind of play it by ear and see how much growth she was doing each week, and kind of go from there. So thankfully she was progressing enough to where they didn't feel like they had to get her out as soon as possible, but it was up in the air to where like any day that I go in, we had 2 ultrasounds a week. And pretty much each week I was like, well, this could be the week that we end up having to be induced, because they just didn't know what rate she was going to keep growing at. So that put me under a lot of stress, and on top of COVID and everything, it was just not a good combination at all. But I was due May 7th, like I said, and it was on April 28th, so it was about 9 days or so till my due date. I woke up in the morning, and all throughout that night I had some just like period feeling cramping all throughout the night, and the next morning I used the restroom and I saw that I had some bloody show. Sorry for TMI, those of you who don't like that. This is a birth video or a birth story, so you might want to click out now if you don't want to hear things like that. Yeah, so I had some bloody show, and that was a really good sign for me, because I really was hoping to go into labor naturally, and I was hoping to have unmedicated birth. And so I woke up very excited that morning when I saw that I was actually progressing on my own. And so I called my doctor, and she wanted to see me the next day. And so I went in to my OB, and she checked my cervix, and I was 3 centimeters dilated already. And I think I was like, I want to say like 30% effaced, something like that. And I was actually having contractions during that appointment, and this was 8 days before my due date. So they had scheduled an induction for the next morning, so it was the 29th at this point, and they had scheduled an induction for April 30th, which would have been right at 39 weeks. When I saw her at that doctor's appointment, she saw that I was actually contracting over that time, and she was pretty sure that I was starting labor. It was just in the very early stages, and so she ended up stripping my membranes that appointment. It was probably around 2 p.m. in the afternoon, and she stripped my membranes, and I should have Damar now, actually. Okay, come over here now. Damar knows more details in this part, so I need him. Okay, so I have Damar now, finally, and my popsicle.
Hey guys.
So I was talking about how I was at my appointment. Basically, Dr. Brubaker wanted to check me. So I was around 3 centimeters then. And she stripped my membranes around 2 p.m. And how would you say that my contractions increased after that, after my membranes were stripped.
So you thought like you were in the early stages that morning before she went in. So when she went in, I wasn't surprised when Dr. Brubaker said that she was 3 centimeters dilated. But yeah, once her membranes were stripped, the time we got done at your appointment until 5 o'clock, you were still completely manageable. Like, she was still walking around, talking, just kind of, laboring rather well, almost like there was not that big of a change. But then as soon as 5 o'clock hit, that's when I could tell you were actually going into
active labor.
Yeah.
It was more like I couldn't talk through the contractions anymore. I really had to focus and just
she was bouncing on her birthing ball.
So.
You were bouncing on the ball, leaning on the counter, just really quiet. And you were off kind of doing your own thing, and I sensed you were starting to kind of go into your zone, and I was like, I think it's about that time. So
my mom was timing the contractions with me, and they went from 5 minutes apart for.
Well, they were all over the place. It'd be 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and then around 6 o'clock, almost 7 o'clock is when it started being consistently timed. When it was 4 minutes, 4 minutes, 4 minutes, or what was it, 3, something like that.
I think it was 3 minutes then. By the time he was okay, we should probably go to the hospital. But at that point, I was still managing the contractions enough to where I was there's no way this is the right thing or the real thing. I don't want to get my hopes up and think that this is labor and then be sent home. So I was really just trying to prolong going to the hospital as long as I could because I didn't want to be disappointed. But then, the way he describes it as he saw that I wasn't handling the contractions the way that I once was, so he could tell that it was progressing and that we needed to go in. And my mom also thought that. So
yeah, after that, I started packing everything up. We got ready, put you in the car, and we headed to the hospital around 7 o'clock. So we went in, we went to the triage or whatever, and they were okay, well, we need to check and make sure that you're far along enough to actually be admitted. If not, we're going to have to send you home, which was Maria's biggest fear, like she was just saying. So we sat there, and when the triage nurse came in, I was like, oh, for sure, she's going to be farther along because the way you were laboring and
how I was having timeable contractions for a couple hours at that point.
But when the nurse came in, she was checked her and she was oh, you're 3 centimeters, and I was what? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
but
I hadn't progressed at all from 2 p.m. to 7. So that was pretty discouraging, and I was surprised. But I had at that point not really set my expectations to even stay at the hospital because I was just expecting the worst. So she was well, let me call your doctor and talk to her because I know you guys are scheduled for induction tomorrow anyway. Let's see what she wants to do. So the nurse called the doctor, came back, and was so since you're already going to be planned to be induced tomorrow, if tomorrow
you don't
morning,
go,
it was the next morning at 7 a.m., right?
Something like that. Yeah. So she was we'll just admit you tonight, and then, just go from there. So they admitted us early, went up to the room, and then from there, I think that's when they started really tracking Sky. Is that when they started figuring out?
Yeah, they had put that little monitor around my belly and was tracking Sky's heart rate, and they noticed that every time I was contracting, the way the cord was positioned, it was clamping. So they described it as basically every time I'd contract, baby would hold her breath until my contraction would let up, and then she'd gasp
her heart
for
rate
air.
would spike.
So her heart rate would drop.
Yeah, while the contraction was happening, but then it would spike after.
Yes.
So after they figured out that her heart rate was doing that due to the contractions, they were trying to position Maria to a certain way to where when she would contract, it wouldn't cause Sky to go through that up and down, the spike and drop.
Going through distress that they were worried about,
Yeah, so they were okay, lay on your right side, but then she laid on her right side and it made it even worse. And well, let's not do that. So then they had her sit up and then lay on her left side. And then when she would lay on her left side, it was a lot better.
So I ended up laboring on my left side the entire time until it was time to push.
And then something I noticed, being a third person perspective, is that when Maria would have a contraction, if she would tense up and not breathe, Sky's heart rate would drop even more. But then when I would like talk to her and tell her to just breathe and relax and like focus on just breathing and relaxing through the contraction, then Sky's heart rate wouldn't drop as much. So I brought that to her attention. I was like, hey, I noticed this. Like, just try to stay relaxed and try to breathe through it. And like, I was like, it's really good for Sky if you do that. And then she started doing that. And I think by her doing that, it actually sped up the process of her
just allowing my body to just
do what it needed to do.
But around, that was before they found out that being on my left side was the best option as far as her heart rate not spiking or dropping. We had a really bad scare to where it kept happening consecutively to where it was looking like a C-section for a while. But then all the nurses came rushing in at one point and they were getting ready to take me and just like get the baby out as soon as they could. But then her heart rate would stabilize again. And so it was kind of just doing that. And then they said the option before that, they said if my water doesn't break naturally really soon, that what they would do is break my water themselves and then refill my water bag. I had never heard of that before, but that was an option, I guess. And then if that didn't reposition the cord, then they would have to do a C-section at that point. So what time do you think it was when they said that my water needs to break?
I'd probably say 12, and then I think it happened around 12:30.
Okay. So yeah, they said that my water needs to break on its own. And it was, honestly, it felt like minutes after she had walked out of the room and told us that my water needs to break. She was like, I would be surprised if your water doesn't break here really soon. It's like bulging at this point. So she walks out and then it exploded. My water exploded like a water balloon.
It was loud.
Yeah.
Literally, it sounded like a water balloon popping. It was like, poof. I was like, in all the movies, it just kind of seems like all of a sudden there's like a trickle of water. Like,
and that is how it is for some people.
Yeah,
but
no, yours was like a water balloon.
Yeah, it was crazy to hear it.
It honestly scared me a little bit, but.
Yeah, he was like, what was that? I was like, that was my water. But at that point, I think I was like 7 centimeters dilated. And like I said, I wanted to have an unmedicated birth. So I was like, at 7 centimeters, I was like, I got this. I can totally do it. But my water broke, and I went from 7 to 10, like, instantly, so almost. Fast.
Like,
so
it seemed
fast.
like the water broke. I went and told the doctor that her water broke. The doctor came in, checked her, was like, oh, it's go time. Called all the nurses in, and then...
Because she was so small, all the NICU nurses had to come and be prepared in case she had to be taken to the NICU. So, yeah, it was like 0 to 100 once my water broke. It was like, oh my gosh, no cushion there anymore. Yeah. It was just like head and, yeah, she was right. She was ripe. So ripe, ready to come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, they came in, they positioned Maria up, and then at first, during the process, they were like, okay, it's time to push, and Maria would push, but she wasn't pushing with the contraction, which I think was like making things worse. It was so
hard because like feeling everything, it was like I felt so much pressure there, and it was like you couldn't help but like you couldn't hold it back. It was just like the urge to push was there, and so obviously it wasn't beneficial at all until I had a contraction, and then it was actually like getting somewhere. Best way I can describe like what a contraction feels like when you're in active labor and when your water has broken and you're like 10 centimeters ready to push this baby out. It feels like a semi-truck is inside of you and it's just revving its engine with each contraction, and then once it's time to actually push, it's like the semi-truck puts its foot on the gas and doesn't let up until the baby comes out. Like, that's how it feels. Like, it's just like insane amount of pressure that you cannot do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
But then trying to push with it is just like, it's what actually does something, but it's painful. But it's the shortest amount of labor, so that makes it so much better because you know that you're so close to being done.
Yeah, we say all this is to summarize all this. Maria only pushed for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, 10 minutes. It didn't even feel like 10 minutes though. It felt like so fast.
Yeah, it was maximum 10 minutes. Like Maria was kind of struggling at the beginning, like the first 5 minutes, but then after they told her like push with the contraction, like push hard. Maria really did like 2 big pushes and out came Sky. it was so crazy. 'Cause
Yeah,
she had
he
just
saw
had,
everything.
Yeah, she had a big head full of hair, and she was just crying and crying.
Yeah.
And then they laid her on the scale to see how much she was weighing. And then, well, of course, I cut the cord first, and then they laid her on the scale. And then I walked over and I was looking at her, and she was like kind of whimpering. And then I started talking to her, and I could see her like calm down. And
It was like she knew him,
recognized
like,
my voice, and it was like it was love from that point.
Yeah.
And I was it was
smitten
game
from-
over. But yeah, that was basically it. And then they came in, the NICU nurses ran a couple tests, and they're like, "Oh, she's fine. She's just really small."
Yeah, she was 4
Because
pounds.
she was 4 pounds, 12 ounces, 18 inches long. She was born at 130, but she was just a champion ever since, like, from the time she's come out of the womb. She's been nothing but healthy and an excellent baby, even though she was growth restricted. So, you know, for anybody who may hear, like, if you're pregnant in the future or currently and you hear that your baby's growth restricted, don't allow fear to come in, because you never know what it could possibly be. But with Sky, like, it shows, you know, there's a possibility that, yeah, they are growth restricted, but they can be completely healthy in the same breath.
Yeah,
So,
growth restricted doesn't mean unhealthy. It just means that they're smaller and they might have like a slower start. But as far as with Sky, like, she has met all of her milestones even early. I'd say there's certain things that she does that I'm like, how are you doing that? She's 13 months at this point, and she runs around,
Climbs up
she
and down
climbs
the stairs.
Up and down the stairs. Obviously, we're there to catch her if she needs, because she's had a couple tumbles for
quite
sure.
a few,
So
like
quite a
every
few.
child.
Yeah,
Oh.
so we try to watch her whenever she's doing that. But she does that, like, she's constantly just, like, trying to learn new things, like, challenging herself.
She like obsesses with her motor skills. Like, if she wants to figure out how to make herself like accomplish a task, like climbing up on the couch or climbing up a stair or walking over a big crack, she'll just sit there and do it over and over and over and over and over until she feels confident in doing it. So I think that's just something that her personality kind of
Yeah.
leads the way. But literally, she's healthy as can be. She passed all the tests. She even had to do a car seat test because she was so small that they thought she might not be able to get good enough oxygen sitting in a car seat, but passed that on the first try, and
Yeah.
we were able to get discharged, like, what, 2 days later?
Yeah, like any normal baby, we were able to take her home.
I think we stayed one extra day because they just wanted to,
because of the car seat test, maybe.
the car seat test, and they just wanted to keep an eye on her and make sure she's good and that there's no other questions we have. All that to say, it was a great experience,
Yeah,
honestly.
it was beautiful, and I look back on it very fondly as experiencing and feeling everything was just beautiful and exhausting and all the things. But I would do it a million times over again, and it makes me so excited to have this baby.
I was about to say, well, we were about to do it again in like
Yeah.
a month, so
Yes, I'm 35 weeks pregnant. I'm a little over by the time you guys see this. I'll be 35 weeks and some change, but I had an appointment today, and so far this baby is in the 50th percentile, so she's measuring right on.
average.
Yeah, she's average, which Sky was in like the 0 percentile.
She still pretty much is. She's such a little peanut. People
Yeah.
can't believe that she's 13 months
Yeah,
when they
she's
see
so
her.
little.
But yeah, she's our little champion, and this
Yeah.
baby's gonna be her big little sister. I'm I'm expecting.
Yeah, no, for real. I feel like when this baby's here, she's gonna catch up with Sky so quick, people will probably think they're twins
Yeah.
because they're only 15 months apart. So
It'll be interesting. Like, we have so many questions with baby number 2, like, what color are her eyes going to be? What color is her hair? Like, is she going to be darker or lighter? Is she, like,
Yeah.
there's so many different
like, will she have
components.
dimples? That's my biggest
Yeah.
thing. I cannot wait to see because Sky has the biggest dimples ever.
Yeah, and it's the cutest thing. So it's going to be interesting to see and compare the personalities, and
Yeah.
yeah.
We'll see
It'll be
how
fun.
chill this baby is because Sky is definitely not that chill.
It could be worse.
It could be worse for sure. But anyways, that is pretty much it for her birth story. We really hope you enjoyed listening, and we're happy that we finally sat down and did it, just because
Yeah.
details like that can kind of slip your mind later on. So it'll be nice to
Look back on.
look back on it for us also. So.
Yeah, and if you guys have any questions, you know, drop them down below in the comments. we'll do our best to get to them as soon as we can.
If you guys haven't subscribed to our channel already, go ahead and do that down below. And we do have our social medias linked down there also. So you'll see lots of pregnancy updates. I usually try to give a bump date every couple weeks or so, but we are nearing the end, so I'm sure that a lot of things will be posted on there first. So if you guys want to see the progression of this pregnancy and kind of when I am going into labor and all that, so you should definitely follow us on Instagram also. Make sure you also give this video a thumbs up. It really does help us out a lot. But we hope you have a good Sunday.
And
yeah, we'll see you guys next week.
High Tower family, out.